Good morning, afternoon, evening, friends and family, loved ones. This is your friend Kelly, and I posted a video earlier this week regarding this Voyage Bladeworks Outlander knife. And I think I mentioned in it that it's kind of got a hog nose thing. You can't get a cord through there as it sits. You have to take the scales off or at least undo them part way. I'm going to go ahead and show you what they did. It's not hard. Unscrewed completely the back. And what I would just do is loosen the front one so you can pivot it out of the way. And you can see they have just a little bit of a thing there, but this covers up where the cord needs to go through. You can't get it through there. Now, you can use the cord that they gave you with the bead they gave you. I'm not a fan of this particular type cord because it's kind of rough, but to do that, you need to pull it through and then tighten it down. And if you're wanting to use the cord as purchase, you're not really getting a purchase with this thin cord like it is. So if you're needing it or wanting it for something other than decoration purposes, and plus you'll see this, you have to actually kind of come over, and you see how it's gapping if you have it lined up because of the cord. You can crank it down onto the cord and that gap will go away, but this is not an optimal way of doing this. I would suggest making your own cord, getting some 275 or 325. Well, heck, you can do probably 275 also, or 425 cord, which I have some 425 cord here. I'm going to see how it turns out. I have not done it yet, and I hate this type of cord. I think this is actually 275 is what this is. But what you can do is feed it through. I might have to, there we go. And what I would do is just go ahead and redo the scales. And see, that should lay flat to where it's not gaping near as much with just the one instead of doubled up. You can maybe see that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together again, because personally, I'd rather have the sheath on the blade as protection, just in case anything weird happens. That's just me and me being cautious when I'm tying the thing. But see, there's no gapping if you do it that way, and it locks this in place. This cord is not going to move of its own free will because of the way they have this set up. It's not something you can put this other cord that they gave you with it on this way. You have to loosen the handles. If you want a lanyard on this, no matter what, you're going to have to either take the handles off or at least loosen them to where you can pivot them out of the way. Now, I have this actually section cups down onto my desk, but since I'm not having the desk, I just put it in there to where it's snug, not tight, but snug to where it's not going to shift around too terribly much. And I make my lanyard. And of course, normally I like my lanyards where I can move them and shift them, but since that's kind of already locked in place because of the way they did that, that's another thing that I'm not crazy about. And if those of you that don't know it, I wasn't crazy about my sheath either, because it shakes, rattles, and rolls. And over time, anybody that has Kydex sheaths, you know, over time they loosen anyway. They start out already loose, that's not a good thing. But me, I usually like to do 3 or 4, depending on how much room there is between where my pinky lands. Knots. Let's see here. And this, my hand fits good, but my husband's, if he does it, his pinky will land on this. And this is something that we're debating on, if I'm getting this or if he's getting this. So what I'm going to probably do is just make it the lanyard to where it'll be comfortable for him. But you do have 550 paracord is not going to work on this either because of the fact that it's too thick. I don't know, I did something weird there. Undo. So don't use 550 paracord. You're going to need at least the minimum, biggest size is probably going to be this 425 that I have here. And I suggest that, or the 325, they're the same thickness. And I think that's a good thickness where you will be able to have a good grip for your pinky. Let's put it that way. If that's what you're using it for. Now, if you're just wanting to use it for decoration, go with what they gave you. If you don't mind that this whole big long part before it gets down to the bead portion, I'm not a fan of that normally. I mean, it has its purposes. If you have say a fixed blade and you want to have it wrap your hand through it and grab on and have, sorry, helps if I do this. If you have your hand on here and you want to wrap your hand through the paracord, then having a length like that, actually longer than that if that's the case, to be able to put your wrist through so you don't drop it or lose it, I can understand. There's a reason for a lot of different things. This is purely for wanting to look at, and is not, let's put it this way, this was not one that I would care to have on my knife. Just personal preference. But if you need to know how to tie the lanyard, I've got a couple videos out there. I would look at the more recent one that I did. My audio's a lot better on it. And see, that will give a good amount of room. And since I'm not worried about keeping this, let's see if I could cut this off. I have some of this paracord anyway myself, so it's not that big of a deal. Not like I'm keeping that. But before I actually finish this off, I'll probably have my husband double check it and see how he prefers it. And then I need to play with heating up the Kydex and seeing if I can get rid of that rattle and firm up the tightness of it. And I usually do a diamond knot on the end because the snake knots work loose, so I'll put a diamond knot on the end of this if I don't decide to do a couple more snake knots than the diamond knot. But that, where my husband will probably grasp it, should do well where he's going to have it and give a little bit of extra to look. But in case you haven't watched my other video regarding this and the issue I have, I'm sure you can probably hear that rattle. It's not good because I'm going to sit there and heat it up. I do have a Kydex spacer, and what I'll do is I'll heat it up a little bit in this area and put it in the press and press it in a little tighter here and see if that'll take care of that. But if I can't get it to where I'm happy with it, I'll be contacting them back and asking them, hey, what are you going to do about this? That's not a good thing to have. But for those of you that do get this knife or have this knife and you want a lanyard to have a little bit more grip, if your hands are a little bit bigger than mine, I got decent sized hands. I usually wear like a large glove. This may be something it's not that you're wanting it for decoration purposes per se. You want it for actual grip for your pinky. then you're going to have to take your handles off, or like I said, make it to where you can pivot them out of the way and put one on. And I do, like I said, suggest the 425. You can use what it came with. I'm not a fan of it, but if you're wanting it for pinky purchases, it's not going to work real well for that. But just a thought, people. They didn't really think this portion of it out, I don't think, because they should have made it a little bit easier access and something better to be able to do for that. But anyway, everybody have a wonderful day. Many hugs, many kisses, much love. Your friend Kelly. Bye-bye.